says, and because we're now saying that even davening is the higher tshuva, not just learning Torah brings the light of Hashem into our lives. When we daven, also we experience the light of Hashem in our lives. So that has to first be tshuva tatah. In other words, the point of Perek Yud is to say you have to have tshuva tatah before tshuva law, and then in tshuva law itself, davening before learning. Okay, what is tshuva tatah? Lachmanas on your soul. Zivchei lekim, a carbon to lekim, ruach nishbar, with beating up on yourself to take away the malafafte, the hugging, the embracing that klipa has on the person. Which is why it says in the Shas, in the olden days, before people davened, they had a heavy head, or Pirish Rashi, not trying to tachna submission. Before people davened, when they got up in the morning, the first thing they did was they broke themselves. This is the lower tshuva that involves which brings to the second point, which is to arouse mercies. Canals, we discussed in the beginning of Perek Ches, and before that in Perek Zayin. The Gemara learns it from the pasuk, which says by Chana the Ksivi Maras Nefesh. The beginning of davening is if to be bitter. This is tshuva tatah. So in the olden days, the beginning of davening was being bitter, and tshuva tatah, and then davening itself was light, enlightenment, and of course it culminated in learning Torah. The Gemara, the Braisa says over there in this Gemara on the Mishnah Brachos, nowadays we can't daven bitter because we're never going to get around to davening with joy. We have to daven with joy, and therefore, in this generations of orphancy, spiritually speaking, it's not possible for all people, for average people, to turn over, leave them their hearts in one instant. Minakotza, from starting off the davening in a bitter tshuva tatah state to transforming us into an optimistic tshuva law state. The solution to this problem nowadays is to do tshuva tatah at midnight. As I discussed earlier in the beginning of Perek Zayin. So when you do tikkun chatzos, that's when you do the Mara de Choshbon about Avedis, and you have the Zivchei Elikim Ruach Nishbara. And then when you come to davening in the morning, you do it mitech simcha. You can't say tikkun chatzos each night because you have enough koyach. Al kol panim at the very least. You shouldn't make tikkun chatzos less than once a week. Lifnei Yom Shabbos, the night before Shabbos, Thursday night. It's known what it says in Kabbalah, Shabbos is the higher tshuva. Because the Shabbos is Toshev and Shabbos, the idea of Toshev, returning to the Eibishter. On Shabbos the worlds ascend, Lemakerim to their source of Chuli. Or Befrak Tfilas Shabbos, especially when a person is davening on Shabbos Vidal. And on Shabbos we experience enlightenment. On Shabbos Hashem's light is brought into our world. Or said differently, our world is lifted up to the Madrig of Shabbos. So Shabbos is Tshuva law. So Thursday night before Shabbos, you have to have Tshuva Tatah. Yuvan, which explains a strange pasuk. The pasuk says, "Mashakos of Shuve Elai, return to me, ki galticha, because I redeemed you." So the question, of course, is: once the Eibishter redeems you, why do you have to return to him? And the explanation is Pirush. Ki ma'acha sins shemachisa, I wiped away of like a thick cloud pshacha your severe sins. We hadn't Perek Yud Zayin and Chonach Hatasecha the smaller sins. Yavara zitra achara, it's removing the klipa. O galticha, and I redeemed you. Menachitzenim from klipis beseder achmarabim. El Yenim, by evoking the Yud Mitzarachim, like Dr. Rebbe said in the beginning of Perek Ches, because you did tshuva, and you were bitter about your own life and your own avedis, and this aroused reciprocity that Hashem should reveal the Yud Mitzarachim. So now that the Eibishter redeemed us because of our lower tshuva, azai tshuva elai, but tshuva elai, you have to have tshuva elai. So it begins with tshuva tatah, the bitter tshuva, and then it continues on with tshuva ilah, which here the Alter Rebbe adds. It's not just Torah, but it's also, what is here the lashon before? Is asik beiraise b'dechil lechem and the kutzbrichel. Here in Perek Yud, he add that there's also tshuva ilah in tefillah. Before you go, I want to add 2 points, and that is that the one nekuda which is added in this Perek Yud didn't have before is the idea that tshuva ilah is mitech simcha. Because what is tshuva ilah? Tshuva ilah is really ruach hakodesh, bringing Hashem into your world, experiencing godliness. You can't experience godliness unless you're open to it. The openness for godliness, for tzedakah, ruach haberucha is simcha. So if tshuva tatah is bitter, tshuva ilah is inspired and it's up. That's one point. So the tshuva tatah is bitter. That's in the olden days was the beginning of davening. Now it's tikkun chatzos, and I suppose we also it's kishma shalamita. And Tshuva law is the richness of Yiddishkeit, davening and learning and mitzvahs. But the Rebbe in his Maimorim and Sichis, the Maimor from Tafshin Mem Vov, I think it's Rav Achazi. It's a Maimor from Tazayin or Yudayin Kislev Tafshin Mem Vov. Margel B'Huma the Rebbe. The Rebbe says that there's no tshuva at all. Just tshuva law. Just tshuva b'tach simcha. The Rebbe says we've done so much meridas. The Holocaust was a collective and historic meridas for Klal Yisrael till Mashiach. And now we have to have only the avodah of simcha and tshuva law. And that's the Rebbe's approach. You want to do tshuva, bring light of Hashem into your world. Don't feel bad. Don't feel even bitter. Certainly not depressed because of Averis. Bring the light of the Eibush into your life. And the Rebbe says, Trach gut, v'zayin gut, be optimistic that the Eibush will clean out the spiritual lethargy, the spiritual desensitization of an Aveda and give you a chush and ruchnis again. So the Rebbe writes. So we have a whole new Avodah, even though we spent Zayin at the beginning of Ches talking about Tshuva Tato, and that the rest of Ches, Tes and you talking about Tshuva Law, the Rebbe says, Tshuva Law. Tshuva Law means besimcha. When a person is besimcha, and he learns Chassidus, and he feels a lakus, it's not just a good experience, but it resensitizes the person. It takes away the ill effects of Avedis as well. Okay? Good.